Hello, and welcome to the InPowered Women Podcast. This is where we spotlight unstoppable women who are not only excelling in business, but thriving in life, lifting others up, blazing new trails, and making space for the next generation of female leaders. I'm your host, Sharon Lee, and I'm so glad you're joining us today. Hi, and welcome to the InPowered Women Podcast. I'm Sharon Lee with Pinnacle Strategic Advisors, and I am your host. And I'm excited to bring you my next guest today. I think I say that every time, but it's always true. This episode is brought to you by Kelsey Creer and the team at the Movement Lab. Their practice is focused on helping people move, feel, and live better so that they can continue doing the things that matter most to them. They're especially passionate about supporting women through every stage of life, providing thoughtful care that strengthens both health and confidence. Kelsey, a big thank you to you and the entire team at the Movement Lab for supporting the InPowered Women Podcast and the women we serve. So reach out to them at themovementlabcp.com. And with that, I bring you Christina Barnes. Hey, Christina, how are you?
Hi, Sharon. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, I have been really excited about this conversation. So, it's so funny. We met back in the fall, and we were both at a faith-driven entrepreneur event. And it's funny, I'm looking around.
Of the only women there, right?
Well, that's exactly what I was going to say. And I'm like, okay, we've got our little group. And so I'm like, rounding them up. You got to come to our table because we're girl power. We're going to stick together. And it was just so funny that we met there and just have been buds ever since. And so you've got such an interesting story. And I think that this story needs to be told. So tell everybody who you are, who you're with, and a little bit about what you do.
Yeah, so my name is Christina Barnes. I am the development director at Adventurous in Missions. We are an international Christian mission sending organization where we focus on raising up leaders to be the change the world needs. And I'm so excited to talk to you guys more about that because it was a big, crazy catalyst in my own life story as I was growing up in my young adult years. I went on a wild backpacking trip called the World Race, 11 months, 11 countries. And that's what brought me here to Gainesville, Georgia, to work at Adventures in Missions, and then ultimately to get connected with you and be here.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, and one other thing I was thinking about when we first met was the fact that you were in a boot and your husband had been, I think, in a car wreck and had broken both legs. And here you've got three little kids, two parents, one leg, right? Did I get that right?
One thing the older I get, the more certain I am that one thing you can always count on is life throwing you curveballs.
Yes.
Always. And yes, I met you after the most ridiculous summer that I've ever experienced. So I had a scheduled knee surgery. I had torn my ACL in cheerleading in college when I was 19, and then 20 years later, I retore it at the gym. It turns out that when you get a cadaver ligament, eventually they wear out. I don't remember that conversation when I was 19, but I'm sure that they told me. So I had that scheduled 3 weeks after, while I'm still in a boot. My husband is on a couple hours into a guy's weekend and on an ATV, and they're doing donuts.
Oh.
And he fell out of the ATV, put out his legs to catch himself, and fell on his legs. So he broke both of his legs. So you're right. We had one working leg between the two of us, and all three of my little kids, ages 3, 5, and 7, had all 6 of theirs totally fine. But it was incredible to see our community step up and rally around us. I mean, we had friends building a wheelchair ramp up our 3 steps to our house like that weekend, and just so many meals and prayers and encouragements. That was, I think, our biggest takeaway from all of that, besides the fact that life always throws you curveballs, is that, wow, like watching your community rally around you really just warms your heart in a way that few other things can.
Absolutely. Well, and if I'm also remembering right, not only did he break his legs, but then all of a sudden he's decided to do rotator cuff surgery.
So that was a grown-up decision because we had hit our insurance max.
Oh, right.
That was adulting at its finest. So yeah, we had hit our insurance max, and his shoulder had been bothering him on and off for like the previous year. And I was like, you should get the MRI because it's essentially free at this point. So we
Right.
got the MRI, and they said, yeah, you got a torn rotator cuff and labrum, so you need surgery. So we scheduled that, and that was in October. So yeah, the second half of 2025 was a storm.
Right. Well,
The first
and you
half was
said, oh, I'm sorry,
magic,
go ahead.
actually. We celebrated our 10-year wedding anniversary. We went to Cape Town, South Africa, which was a dream we had had for 10 years. I mean, it was the first half of the year was just dreamy, and the second half was like
Crash and burn. Well, it's funny you were talking about how, the community comes pouring out to help and all of this. And meanwhile, I find out that he's going to be in surgery. And I'm like, well, come to me to this event.
I remember
Because he's
you
not
were
gonna,
like, come to this event. I'm like, that's
he's
the
not,
day of his surgery. You're like, he's in surgery. What are you going to do?
he's not going to know if you're there or not. Come on. So yeah, then you've got that friend. But that's all right. That's all right. Well, anyway, so I'm glad that all seems to be on the mend. Hopefully,
Yes.
years to come, everything will stay. You can just stay out of the hospital and stay out of casts.
So
And
I used this phrase. In fact, I still have it sitting right here because I had a couple of my Happy New Year's cards that got returned. But for those of you watching on video, you can see this famous picture of me and Seth in the hospital that day, and then him in his wheelchair, and then our three little kids and our family. But I used this quote on the back. A French philosopher once said, "Live to the point of tears, fully alive to life's joy and its suffering." And if any year pushed us there, it was 2025. But we're in 2026 now.
that's right. That's right. So nothing, nowhere to go but up. Well, let's talk a little bit about adventures, because you've definitely been on adventures. And so you mentioned a little bit about the world race.
Yeah.
So let's back up to even talk about how you even heard that was a thing. What made you even take that leap and all of that? And I think that just before we even get into all that, I think the theme for today is for any young person out there that I know when my son was getting ready to go for college and he was like so stressed out thinking he had to have everything figured out. And I'm like, nobody has it figured out. I don't have it figured out. Nobody's got it figured out. But, there's so much pressure on kids to go, okay, you've got to go to college or you've got to go to a technical school and you have to do this and you have to do this. And, oh, by the way, when you get married, when you're going to have kids. And, there's so much pressure for people to think that they have to have life totally mapped out. And the reality is, even if you have it supposedly mapped out, it's probably not going to work. But I mean, that doesn't leave you any breathing room to actually live life, right? So here you are. Now I can get off my soapbox, right?
No, it's good.
Well, here you are. So where were you in your life journey where you were going, hey, I've heard about this, maybe I should consider it?
Yeah, no, that's a good setup. So I was a serial achiever. Like, what I got to achieve all these things all the time, one after the other. And I went that way through school. I still wrestle with a lot of that now as an adult. But I loved school. I went right from undergrad into grad school. I did a master's in international business. I was a study abroad junkie. I studied abroad 3 different times in my college career. And so I knew I loved to travel. I knew I loved intercultural understanding and international exposure. I had gotten a scholarship from Rotary International and then started a nonprofit with my best friend from college after she got the same scholarship to help raise awareness for young people about opportunities to serve, lead, learn, and travel. And so it's all about that. And it was 2008. And the economy had just tanked.
Yeah.
And I ended up working what felt like an internship, but it was actually a real job, but it was a sales job. And it was very humbling for me as a young adult that had been in the business school hall of fame and had all these different cords and decorative things when I graduated and had all these different accolades. And I really feel like God was using that in my life to get my attention to show me that my little tunnel vision that I had for the path that I had envisioned for myself, that there was actually much bigger possibilities if I was willing to kind of look around and see the world around me. And so it was through that humbling experience, like I distinctly remember, because when you work a sales job, it's up to your own self-discipline. And so I remember being like home in the late morning hours, probably because I didn't have appointments that morning. I had slept in and I was just kind of crying out to God. I'm like, what am I doing at my parents' house? I got this graduate degree and I've got all these accolades and this is what you have for me, God? Like, really? And I remember God saying, like, all these years you've been asking me to bless what you've been doing. Why don't you come see what I'm doing? And in my little context of life, I was like, oh, church. Like that must be what I'm sensing is like I should go back to church, which maybe, but God used church to expose me. I saw someone sharing their story about how they were going on this crazy missions trip. And it was the girl was saying, I used to be an addict. And so when I do things, I go all in. And, I heard about this missions trip. So I'm not just going to go for a week. I'm going for a year. And I remember sitting there going, that's crazy. But I did write it down and kind of had it on my bulletin board and I looked into it and I was like, I don't know if I have a year. I've got all these plans and these things I need to accomplish. I got to scale my nonprofit. I've got to do these different things. And I remember talking to somebody who is my age now, someone who was 40 and I was 20, about 25. And I said, I don't know if I could spend a whole year doing that. A year just feels like so long. And he said, compared to what? And it was like, well, I guess compared to 1 week, which is about how long I had done a missions trip up until that point.
Right.
But yeah, but compared to a lifetime. And I was like, it's a good point. Compared to a lifetime, it's a drop in the bucket. And so I was like, all right. So for me, that was like the logic that it took. And it really did open up my eyes to a whole world, a career path that I had never even considered. I didn't even know people that were missionaries. I had never really been exposed to that. And that year overseas really blew my mind. And then coming back, I was like, what does this have to do with anything? This is awesome, but like, how do I build a career in this space? Like I went to school for business. I had studied, I majored in marketing. I did a certificate in entrepreneurship and global management. And I was like, what, like missions was fantastic, but like, what is that? How do I do that, God? Like, where's the job for that? And I remember kind of sensing as I was laying in a hammock in Cambodia in month 9, there was not a lot to do that month. We were in the middle of nowhere and we had, helped out with the local church and we would pray for people, but a lot of time left to your own thoughts.
Ooh, that's dangerous.
Right. Well, at this point, it was really needed. And we don't get that a lot, in our day and age in our culture. And I remember just kind of thinking and praying. And I felt like God started to highlight to me all the different people that I had met that really stood out in my memory. And they were all entrepreneurs, people with a dream, someone who had a dream for the first private Christian school in their village, someone who had a dream for the first bookstore in their village, someone who had a dream. And I would always gravitate towards those people and encourage them and brainstorm with them and try to get them connected to ideas that would serve them and help them grow what they were building. And then I felt like God said, there's a place for that in ministry. Like I just kind of sensed it. And I was like, oh, that's what I want to do. That's what I want to get into. And then eventually it was that little seed that landed me at Adventures and Missions, helping launch our women's ministry, which was my first job there. And I got to do that for about 4 years.
Let me jump in right quick because number one, yes, right. Number one, we collectively think of missions as we have all of these people that we need to help, right? And look at how all of these people that you were supposedly sent there to help ended up helping you. So I mean, that's such a paradigm shift.
Like juxtaposition. Like that's the biggest bait and switch is that you think you're going out there because there's all these people that need your help. And then you realize how much you actually needed to be helped. And we talk about, this was a conversation I had with a friend of mine who was a long-term missionary in India. And we talk about poverty. And we generally think of that as a lack of financial resources, but there's so many different kinds of poverty. And the kind of poverty that oftentimes we realize that we have is a poverty of community, a poverty of self, a poverty of just like a richness of relationship and depth of connection with the world around us. And
Yep.
other people in the other world who don't have money have all of that. And so it's very eye-opening sometimes to realize like, oh, I didn't realize I was
Right.
poor in certain ways.
Yep. I know you come back, my cup is full. I'm really, and how did they end up providing all of that? Well,
Big
so
time.
also back up a little bit because you jumped all the way to month 9 in
Yeah.
Cambodia. But
Yep.
what all, so you said that, you would do different types of missions in different types of countries and all of that. So I'm
Yeah.
curious about the types of missions that you did, kind of some of your top places that you went. And also, what were some of the fun that you got to do while you were traveling?
Yeah. So anybody who's been on the world race gets used to reciting their countries. And so I was in Honduras, Nicaragua, Guatemala, Cambodia, Thailand, Malaysia, Romania, Moldova, Kenya, Uganda, Rwanda. So those are my 11 countries. And I like to tell people that I'm a tapas eater. Like if we go out to eat, I want
Yep.
to share food with you. I want to taste
Mhm.
your food. I want you to taste mine. I want to order
Right.
small plates. And that's why the world race was such a great fit for me because I got to try out lots of different types of
Mhm.
service work in all different types of settings, which for me was just my best life. I
Yeah.
didn't
Yeah.
even know I needed.
Exactly.
But yeah, so
And
we got, go
and
ahead, go
before
ahead.
you, well, before you left, how many of those particular countries could you have even found on a map?
I know. Yeah. No, I remember doing like fundraisers like at local businesses that I had relationships with and stuff. And, putting little dots on the globe on the globe
Yep.
that I had as like a centerpiece. Yeah, no, you're right. Some of these places I didn't even know where they were. We work often, one of our international bases is in Eswatini, and everyone's always like, where is that?
It
Yeah.
sounds lovely.
The world is big. Yeah. But like you were asking, it was all types of work. So I got to work at a special needs orphanage for little kids. I worked in anti-trafficking work in Southeast Asia. I
Wow.
worked in community development in Central America. And so it was all different types of work. But like I said, for me, I think, and for a lot of young adults, the interesting part is like looking for that common thread of the things that make you feel alive, the things that get you excited.
Mhm.
I remember getting into the tuk-tuk at the end of the day, one day in Thailand, and we had gone on an elephant ride,
Very cool.
and went on bamboo rafts, which were literally pieces of bamboo that were like strung together and like almost like paddleboarding.
Mhm.
Uh, and I remember getting in and visited a limestone waterfall. We had like an adventure day at the end of each of our countries. And I also went bungee jumping over the Nile River in Uganda. And we did that before breakfast with the squad because only a few of us were crazy enough to do that. I wouldn't do it
Mhm.
again, by the way.
No.
I did it with a teammate, and you basically fall. I didn't feel like I was jumping. I felt like I was falling. But similar feeling to being skydiving, except for the hanging upside down at the end. I could do without that part.
Yeah, no, thank you.
But I remember we were like, oh, we go bungee jumping before breakfast. But lots of adventure. I remember getting into the tuk-tuk at the end of the day in Thailand, and I remember thinking, this is one of the best days of my life. And then I thought, huh, this very well could be the best day of my life. I can't think of another day, which is
Right.
really sweet to have those moments, which
Mhm.
I think, now as an adult and as somebody who really tries to create spaces of intentionality and reflection and all these things, it's important to notice these really special, even
Mhm.
average special days. Like at the end of
Right.
the day today, I might think to myself, today was a perfect average day.
Right.
Because I had the opportunity to do this, which we've been looking forward to for a long time. And
Yep.
on Tuesdays, I pick up my kids and I get some time with them after school. And so I think it's important for us because life just goes
Mhm.
so fast to
Oh,
look
for
for
sure.
those moments that remind us, like, oh, yeah, these are the things that fill my cup. These are the moments that I want to
Yep.
crystallize in my memory. And the World Race had so many of those, which is really special.
So you mentioned before you left, you had taken the sales job, you were a little disillusioned
Yeah.
with that. We're not crazy about that. So you go off on this huge adventure and you didn't know exactly what to expect, but you thought, okay, this is my jam. This is something that I could really get into and I could really dig. And then you get back and you're in your mid 20s. And one question that I just popped into my head is for your average best buds that you had been on that, go, go, go mission with before that, this is all about climbing the corporate ladder. Think about your 20s. That is your full mission. And then you come back and you had met these entrepreneurs. So it wasn't like you totally checked out for a year business wise. It was just a completely different route. So how did your relationship change just with your peers when you came back? Did you come back at this elevated maturity level that, it's like, I just see you not having the same conversations with them as you did before you left?
That is such a great question. I think a lot of my friends and family were looking at me sideways, like, you're doing what?
Right. Okay, bye-bye.
Everybody I grew up with did that. Like in my world that I live in now, everybody does this. But where I grew up, it was like, you're doing what? Mm-hmm. For how long? Why?
Right.
But I'll never forget a friend of mine from college, not even a close friend, just someone that I, would see at weddings as people were getting married in that decade. And I saw her at a wedding and she said, "Hey, I've been following your post. I saw what you're doing. I think it's cool." And then she said, we're all drinking somebody's Kool-Aid, right? She goes, "We're all drinking somebody's Kool-Aid. We're all pursuing building somebody else's dream. And, I think the one that you chose, that's pretty cool." And that was it. That was the extent of the conversation. But it left me thinking like, wow, like that's kind of neat. Like if somebody's watching my life from afar and, and seeing that I'm pursuing something that really makes me come alive and maybe is generally good for the world, like, hey, it's not so bad.
No, check. I'm making a little mark in the world somewhere.
It's so funny because it's like that idea that like we really are all like my very first boss at that job that I had that was more like an internship. It was a sales training company. And I remember telling her like the first day when I met her, she's like, "Would you like to learn more about our company? I could have you come over and take a tour, da, da, da." And I said, "Well, I'm really not interested in getting into sales." And she said, "Well, you're always going to be selling something. It's either a product, a service, or yourself."
Amen, sister.
Like, oh, okay. Yeah, you're right. It was kind of like that line from the other guy that was like, compared to what? How long compared to what? But these little moments like kind of stand out to you. And it's true. We're all selling or buying into something.
100%. You should be always selling. You should be always learning, and those types of things. Yeah, you're never there. You're always on that journey. And so you might as well, try to fortify it along the way. So look at you. You're quite fortified. Let me just tell you. But now, okay,
so to show it.
Right, exactly. So you get back, you've had your moment in the hammock and you're like, okay, now I've got to take some of this entrepreneurship.
Something greater. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, and then you just came out, went busters and owned the world, right?
Yeah. So for the first time in my life, coming off the world race, I had a plan, which I always did. I thought I was going to marry a guy from my squad. And I thought I was going to move to Australia and do this fellowship program. I already knew I wanted to do my field work on the Burmese border. And I got back. And the guy said, "Oh, I really don't think it's the best time for me to be in a relationship." And then the fellowship application committee said, "Well, we'd really like for you to have more international experience. Can you go back out and apply again in 3 to 5 years?" And I was like, I didn't have a plan.
Right.
I remembered this guy that I had met, the founder of Adventures and Missions, my now father-in-law.
That's a crazy story as well.
We had mutual family friends from South Florida where I grew up. So when I went to training camp, they said, "Oh, say hello to the Barnes family." And I said, "Okay, whoever that is." And then I got there and they introduced, "This is our founder, Seth Barnes." And I thought, "Oh, that's the guy who knows my friend's family." So I had met him in my training camp and he said, "Oh, if there's anything I can do to help you out when you get back, let me know. I love helping young people figure out their next steps." And so when the guy and the fellowship fell through, I was like, I think I'm going to take up that guy, Seth Barnes, up on his offer. Mm-hmm. And so I sat down with him once I got back and he said, what do you want to do? Like if you could do anything. And of course I knew from my hammock moment that I wanted to help people start ministries. I wanted to help people start kingdom focused businesses. And he said, great. How'd you like to help us start our women's ministry? And I said, oh, I don't know anything about women's ministry. And he said, it's okay. I've got somebody else who's got the women's ministry background. I need somebody who's going to build it. You know, the nuts and bolts, the relationship building, you know, the infrastructure, building a business, building a ministry. It's all the same. Give it 6 months, see what you think. And I was like, well, I just did 11 months. I could probably do another 6. And then that's when I said, is there a salary or something associated with this position?
Right.
And he said, well, the ministry doesn't exist yet. So no, you have to raise support, which I'm now very familiar with. I actually do that for a living.
Right.
But he said, I said, well, is there like housing or something that I can live in? And he said, well, you'll have to talk to my son. He runs our internship program and maybe you can live in intern housing. And I was like, okay. And so I walk over to meet my now husband, whose first words to me are, I've got 30 minutes. And I like to tell people, little did he know I was taking the rest of his life. But I did end up doing the intern housing. I did end up helping launch that women's ministry. It was the first startup that I stayed with as long as I have. But it is my most successful as I look back. It has been so blessed. It has multiplied so big. Not to say that was my work, it's the Lord's. And also it's my friend Betty who leads it now. Mm-hmm. But that taught me a real big lesson about sticking with things, because there had been so many other, you know, nonprofits and businesses and civic organizations and other little things that I had been a part of starting. But I always, looking back, realized I left too soon. I got impatient. And I passed off the baton to somebody else. And then a year later, I would hear that it fizzled out. And I was like on the advisory board or long removed and like, come on, guys. But it takes a long time to get things solid and working and going and sustainable.
Right.
So it was a awesome experience, but also very trying for my patience in that management space for almost 4 years.
So when you say, okay, yes, now I have a place to live. Have no money, but I've got some basics.
But in your 20s, it's kind of like you haven't changed having money yet. So
exactly.
Whatever. Easier.
Yes. Just what? Yes.
I actually tell young people that a lot. I'm like, if there's crazy dreams or things that you're feeling drawn to or you want to pursue, do it now. Mm-hmm. Don't sign your lease and buy a bunch of furniture and make these commitments and join a gym and do all these things, because it's so much harder to walk away from. I mean, some people do it. A lot of people do it and never look back, but it's just harder to walk away and go, live out of a backpack for a long period of time. Is to just do that when you're young and you got nothing.
I mean, even if you're not living with a backpack for a year, making those pivots are always very hard. And you're right. The more that you have tied down in those early years, the more you're never going to take any of those little risks and those leaps and all of that. But I am curious, you've come off this year of doing all this. You weren't really sure what you were going to do. You're talking to your now father-in-law, and you're in the world of trying to develop this ministry. So, obviously there was someone that was already in place, but you had to actually get out there and build the infrastructure and the foundation of it and all of that. So, with that person that comes in with no experience, essentially, you just got grit, right? And grit is a big part of entrepreneurship, and that should not be overlooked at all. But you've got that, but one of the best things that you can do to grow and scale a business is have processes. So did you come in with an idea of how you wanted to do it? Did you wing it? Did you, how did you actually start the process and start building this?
So me and I think Betty might have been in her early 30s, but I was in my 20s being mentors, surrounding ourselves with people who had gone before us, that knew what they were doing, and, just gleaning from their expertise. We sat with a lot of older women, who built businesses, who had built ministries, who had led women's ministry. It was just a lot of conversations, a lot of note taking, a lot of writing things down, a lot of experimentation and seeing what worked. I mean, we had to recruit too. We did that particular model. It's called Beauty for Ashes, but that model that we were starting with we did that for about 3 years. And we had to recruit all the girls that came through. And then after that third year, we kind of hit a tipping point where it had gained the interest and kind of the collaboration of Adventures and Missions at large. And so now Beauty for Ashes is kind of a piece of all the different programs that we offer. But at that point, it was just one thing. And so we were recruiting, we were marketing, we were, soliciting donations. We were, doing the logistics and the trip planning and the ministry partnership, all of it, which is a great, it's like chief cook and bottle washer when you're starting a business. Yep. So it's smart to put yourself in that position, because then when you're hiring somebody else to do it, what to have them do. Right. But it's very taxing while it's happening.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Well, and has that changed how you would go about thinking about mentoring others? Because I'm assuming that the mentors that you all sought were not just people within your sphere there so these were business people out in the community, people that you knew. So, that's another takeaway, is always be meeting people and networking and finding out what they do, how they got there, and all of that. But anyway, so I'm getting off tangent here. But so to think back through, how does that change your thought of bringing that next generation up?
Yeah, I think, I think something that I heard, I think it was a John Mark Comer book. He said that we tend to, so like mentor and disciples like the Christianese word for mentor, tend to use that word like in the wrong part of speech. Like we tend to think like, Jesus discipled those disciples, like the 12 that were following him, or like, I'm a mentor, I'm mentoring you. But really, like the disciples' job was to follow him. The onus of responsibility is on the young person being led, being mentored, being poured into, not on the teacher, the mentor, to seek them out. And I feel like that rang true as I look back at my experience and continue to look at my own experience. Like if I want to learn from someone, I have to pursue them. I have to find ways to add value to their life so that they're interested in spending time with me to pour into my life, because they have something that I want, some expertise or some wisdom that I need. And so I have to go after that. And that is something that I often think is lost in when you're young. Like you think like, oh, I like deserve for these people to pour into me. Like, look at me, I'm Christina. I got straight A's. I was in the Business School Hall of Fame. Don't you want to pour into me? Like, no, they don't care. They don't want to pour into you. They're pussy. And so finding ways to seek them out, it really makes a difference. Like the onus of responsibility is on the person who is seeking the mentorship, not the mentor themselves.
True. And I also think, to tag on to that, the more you can, because I truly believe that if you are in that position and someone is coming to you and asking for your tutelage, most people will give of their time. But most people, like what you just said, it's like, oh, I know you want to pour into me. And there's no real focus on what you want to learn from them. So if you've got that person that you think, okay, that is where my ultimate goal is, what is that one focus, that one takeaway that person can give you? And you go to them and say, I would just like for you to explain, show, blah, 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 this. Because then that person all of a sudden, they've got experience, going on forever, and can just totally dive into that and really do the pouring in. But if you just go, okay, I want to be you, so pour into everything that you know, they're just kind of like, yeah, sure, I'll have a cup of coffee with you. Peace out.
I know. I remember working backstage at a big, like famous women's conference in like the early 2000s, and like, serving coffee and pouring water and stuff like that. And like following out one of the speakers and being like, will you mentor me? As she's like getting into the elevator. Like, first of all, the chutzpah, like, that it took for me to do that. And she was like very gracious and like, oh, sweetheart, but like, really, Christina, like you really thought you were going to follow this celebrity out to the elevator and she was going to say, oh, sure. Personal cell number.
Right.
But yeah, you're right. Asking someone for a specific thing that you want to emulate, And then actually doing something with the advice that they give you and following up and telling them that you did it, that'll give you your second meeting.
Oh, 100%. And many more after that, because they know that you're serious about it. You've got that grit that is very much lacking out there. So, well, one thing that you said earlier, you were talking about the stick with it kind of piece of it. And you're like, okay, I worked on this women's ministry and I stuck with that. And you saw the fruits of it. It is now flourishing in other ways. So, what are you doing now? And like, what is your vision for the future?
Yeah, so I work in development. So we actually just really launched our development department, our team, our program that we're doing in 2024. So we're really only in the second year of it right now. And we get to build relationships with all the fabulous people that are in the adventures kind of ecosystem. So Adventures and Missions, we do lots of different things. So I talked to you about the World Race. That's one program. We also, like we mentioned, Beauty for Ashes, that's our women's ministry. We do short-term missions. So we take churches or individuals, groups of people, largely a lot of youth in youth groups on short-term mission trips. So a week long, whether that's somewhere in the United States to serve in inner city or overseas. We do disaster relief work. So when there's a tornado or hurricane, we'll send teams, and we have long-term basis. Right now, we're finishing up our work in North Carolina. We're wrapping up our 2-year commitment in North Carolina this fall after Hurricane Helene devastated the Asheville area. And so we've got a base in Black Mountain. And so there's all these different kind of, and our international bases. We have international bases in Eswatini, Cambodia, Guatemala, India. So we've got all these different kind of verticals and all these different people that come in through these different verticals. And so our development team gets to build relationships with the people, help them better understand, how they're impacting the world through their partnership with us, whether that's through donating or praying for us or like rallying their friends and family or their church to be a part of the work that's going on, and show and kind of help design these kind of pathways for them to continue to be activated in the unique ways that would bring them a lot of joy. It's really a lot about cultivating generosity. Like, how do we live with a generous spirit, and how do we get after it? Whatever that cause is that breaks our heart or gives us a sense of righteous anger or makes us really excited to be a part of it. Like, how do we help people design kind of steps that they can be more of who they want to be, living generously, giving, going, taking those risks like you were talking about, and us getting to kind of hold their hands and be their kind of concierge in figuring that out, whether it's an individual person or an organization of people seeking to partner with us. So that's the work I get to do, which is a lot of fun.
And so many people like escape work for their fun. So I am curious, as we start to kind of wind this conversation up, I mean, how do you, on your free time, top all of that? What do you do?
I do yoga. So I'm also a yoga teacher. It's funny because the more I get to know myself, the more I'm like, oh, that's why yoga always appealed to me, because I'm just like all in all the time, like in the different things that I put my heart and my time into. I just like jump in with 2 feet.
Yeah.
And that can like burn you out really fast if you do like that. And so I realized that I was drawn to yoga around the same time I got married. So it's been about 10 years since I did yoga teacher training, I guess 9 this year. And I realized that, at the time I was seeking it as a tool to, bless people and create more spaces for women to breathe and connect with themselves, connect with God. And then I realized as I got older, as I had kids, as life sped up to a breakneck pace or break leg pace, I'm like, this is a tool in my toolkit to stay sane.
Yeah.
And I love yoga. I love my yoga friends, my crunchy granola, hippie mama Christian friends. Actually, that's like a really niche market.
There you go. There you go.
But it's a really sweet thing. And before I had kids, I was super active in doing wholeness journeys, which is another thing I started with another friend of mine, which are yoga retreat missions trips. And it was so funny because every time my friend Jess and I would go on one of these trips to a new country, we did them in Guatemala, Colombia, Thailand. I would say, man, this is so fun. Who thought of this?
She must be really awesome.
But that's something that I've noticed also about myself is that I will create the thing that I need. You know, I really was looking for a way to, get away from it all and, do a yoga retreat, but also serve and be connected to something bigger than myself and fill up my heart. And so we did wholeness journeys. And then in 2020, when COVID hit, all my butterfly yoga teacher friends who were doing yoga retreats all over the world and, running studios locally, everything was shut down. And I thought, oh my gosh, we're all going to be depressed. We need to build community and do it quickly. And so I started an online group of all those girls that I knew. It was 12 of us, Zoom. And I, was like, hey guys, I just thought we could create this space to kind of check in and hear what's going on and see what we can do while the world is falling apart around us.
Right.
And I was like, and then we met a couple of Wednesdays in a row and I'm like, how often would y'all like to meet? And they were like, every week. We met from April of 2020 until October. And then naturally I was like, let's do a retreat at the end. And I turned it into a business. And so me and two of my friends ran what we called Yogipreneurs for yoga teachers that were entrepreneurs. And we did that for another year and a half until COVID kind of, everybody went back to work. But that was so fun. And it was fantastic. And we got to make a little bit of money and got to see each other and go do some retreats. But that's something that I noticed isn't what everybody does, but that's something that I do. And I see that in you, Sharon, too. You probably needed the encouragement of a podcast like this in one season of your life. And so you created it.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And so many people think back of how do I monetize this rather than thinking about, okay, this is something that I know personally I would enjoy. So if I create this, I know other like-minded people would enjoy it. And then all of a sudden it does become monetized. And so, it all kind of comes together. I think so many people start racking their brain so hard for just trying to find that quick buck instead of, no, the quick buck's fine. I'll take the quick buck.
It's true, but it's a different business model. I remember running across that word, a lifestyle business, a while back. And I was like, oh, that's what I've been doing all this time. My husband's like, what are you doing with this wholeness journey and yogipreneurs? Are you going to make money doing these things? And we did always make a little bit of money, but I was like, this is actually my joy. This is really fun for me. And it's it's blessing these other people who are paying to be a part of it. So why wouldn't I do it? But I just, a lifestyle business. And like I said, when you're doing something that you love doing, it shows. And then sometimes it does turn into, a quick buck or some bucks that you needed down the road.
Well, this has been so much fun. And I just love all of the different little nuggets and gems that you're able to drop just because life took you there and you were willing to take that leap and take a little adventure, take a risk and all of that. I think that so many people can learn to get out of their own head, get out of their own little square space and go try to, just find a different door and go through it and just be bold. So that's gonna be my word for our episode. Be bold.
Love it.
Anyway, but thank you. I mean, I have so enjoyed getting to know you. I am so excited about just our friendship going forward. But anyway, thanks for coming on and sharing your story. This has been fun.
My pleasure, Sharon. Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. All right. Well, we'll be talking soon. So thank you so much.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for watching this episode of Empowered Women. If you enjoyed our conversation, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share so other women leaders can benefit too. I'd love to hear from you. Send your questions, suggestions, or compliments to Sharon at pinnaclestrategicadvisors.net. The InPowered Women Podcast is executive produced by me, Sharon Lee. See you next time.